Good afternoon, and thank you. This afternoon, we have a privilege to hear from a pioneer in personalized learning. Diane Tavenner is the co-founder and CEO of Summit Public Schools, a leading charter management organization serving California and Washington State. For over a decade, Summit has pioneered an approach to student-centered learning that empowers teachers and helps students reach their full potential. Summit leverages technologies to connect students' long-term goals to their daily actions and empowers them to own their learning with the support of their teachers and mentors. And Newsweek and U.S. Report has ranked Summit among the top public schools in the nation. Summit is currently working in partnership with Facebook to scale personalized learning. They're making Summit Learning Platform freely available to schools across the United States through the Summit Learning Platform. Diane's commitment to students and her vision for personalized learning fuel her work to redesign education for the 21st century. Please join me in welcoming Diane Tavenner.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me and giving me the chance to help close out this incredible conference. I was a third grader in the 70s in a small rural town that had a lot of snow. And my teacher was this really young, beautiful woman who wore bell-bottom jeans and tortoiseshell combs in her hair and had an incredibly beautiful classroom, bulletin boards. And one day, she pulled me out of class. And she said to me, "Diane, I need to talk to you because you're unfocused. You're not paying attention. You're not listening. You're not following directions. You are lazy. You're not doing your work. You're not turning it in. And you're not clean. You haven't bathed and your hair is dirty. And if you don't change things, your life prospects aren't very good." What my teacher didn't know is that a couple days before that, there had been a fight at home. And this one was worse than usual. My mom was hurt pretty bad this time. And what she didn't know is that the police had come, and they had taken my dad. And unlike the times before, he hadn't come back the next morning. And I didn't know when he was coming back. And what she didn't know is I was afraid. I was afraid for when that moment would happen. And I didn't want to get caught off guard. And so I hadn't taken my clothes off, and I hadn't bathed. And I was sleeping with one eye open. And when I was at school, I wasn't paying attention because I was thinking about home. What I didn't have that day was a voice. I didn't have a voice where I could tell my own story, where I could ask for help. And I didn't have the power to change my own circumstances. Statistically speaking, I should not be standing on this stage today. So I became a teacher because I wanted to help kids like me. And I believed that I could get to know them, and I could help them, and I could change their circumstances for them. But what I quickly learned was for every student that I began to know, there were 10 I couldn't possibly know because I had 40 of them coming through my classroom every hour. And what I began to learn is that when I could help, it was fleeting. And sometimes it's not even what they wanted. What they wanted is what I had wanted. They wanted their own voice. They wanted to be empowered to drive their own lives and change their own circumstances. And so like many, many teachers who are in the early stages of their career, I became disillusioned. And I started to make preparations to leave the profession. And then I got a call. I got a call from my family. And by that time, my father and mother had divorced, and my father had remarried. And what I learned is that my father had killed his second wife. Her name was Lori. She was 5 years older than me, and she was a high school dropout. And I went back to teaching with a renewed sense of purpose. I've never looked back. This is a hard story. It's a hard story to tell. It was a hard story to live. I know it's a hard story to listen to. I share it because I firmly believe that all of us who want to reform education, every single one of us who wants to change education, we have to know why we're changing education. We have to really understand the purpose for public education in our country. Because if we don't understand the why and we aren't really clear about that, there's no chance we're going to get the how right. I started a charter school 15 years ago. And I started that school because I believed. I believed that schools could actually equip every kid for the life that they want to lead. I believed that they could equip kids to live a great life, a life where they could engage in purposeful work every single day, where they could live financially in a state that wasn't stressful, where they could have physical health that allowed them to engage in daily activities, where they could have good relationships and engage in their communities. And I believe that you can create schools that equip every single student for that. I believe in people. I believe people want to do good work. I think they want to be successful, and when they're empowered, they're capable of amazing things. And so with those beliefs and a really clear purpose and the ability to start from scratch as a charter school, we launched Summit Prep. And we were successful. 15 years later, we are not one school. We are 11 schools. We're in California and Washington, and we're serving over 3,000 students. We have an incredibly diverse population of kids. They speak all different languages. They come from all different backgrounds. They are in community together and of all different colors and races. By most accounts, we're among the best schools in the country. We ranked nationally in the top schools in the country. We rank top in our state. And by numerous paper accounts, we are top 10 schools in the country. We've won awards for our school design, the XQ Challenge, and Fast Companies even named our organization as one of the most innovative in the country. And because of all of that, we are able to produce phenomenal results for our kids. Every single one of our students graduates exceeding the four-year college entrance requirements, 100% of them. 98% of them are accepted to at least one four-year college, and 55% of them go on to earn a four-year degree within 6 years. That's double the national average, and for our students of color, that far outpaces what any schools are doing. Thanks. These are all really important measures. For me, when I started Summit, I have 3 measures that I hold myself accountable to every single day. And the first is this a school that I wish I could have gone to? And the second is this a school I wish I could have taught in? And the third is this a school I will send my own child to? And there isn't a day where I don't ask myself those questions, and if I can't answer yes, I won't keep doing the work that I'm doing. The good news is I keep answering yes. So how exactly do we do this? It's one thing to do it for 3,000 kids, but how do we do it? Because we don't want it to just be for 3,000 kids. And so we start by asking ourselves, what do 18-year-olds need? What do they need to be equipped to be successful in life when they leave us? You know, at the end of high school, when they're leaving, what do they need? What do they need to be able to do? What do they need what skills do they need? What do they need? And we start by meeting kids where they are. And so what I want to do is introduce you to Edgar. Edgar is a student at Summit Prep in Redwood City. And let's take a look. Meet Edgar.
My name is Edgar Anaya, and I'm currently a junior at Summit Prep in Redwood City. I just turned 17 in April. I would say my family's a little bit complicated. My mom had me at 16, so it was like really hard for her. Her and my dad weren't like always connected when I was young. My parents got divorced when I was about 5 or 6, and so it was pretty hard growing up. Before Summit, I went to school at like a regular middle school. There was a lot of older people that were like abusing drugs, and there was like a lot of people that were in gangs. It wasn't a place where I could really thrive. And so my aunts and my uncles have actually been to Summit. All these people around me that were family, they were thriving at Summit. And so my mom wanted the same for me. I feel like at Summit, even on the first day, like a lot of people care about you there. Everyone's a little bit more connected.
What's going to take for us to design a school that's going to work for Edgar and all of our other kids? There's really 4 things. There's 4 elements that we have employed in order to achieve the success we've achieved. And the first is that we have to believe in students. We have to believe in what they're capable of. The second is that we have to position our teachers for success. The third is we actually have to design great schools. And finally, we have to give schools and teachers tools that support teaching and learning. So let's start with students. The first thing that we need to do is believe that they are much more capable than we tend to believe kids are capable of. And we need to expand the definition of what we're asking kids to do in our schools. There's a much broader set of things that we need to be teaching and engaging kids in than we have been historically. And the good news is that it's not a mystery as to what these things are. We have incredible science today around how we learn and how people learn best and who learns. And you've had the benefit of hearing from some of the most amazing scientists over the last day and a half about what we know about learning. So we are very fortunate at Summit to partner with these folks and many more. And the first thing we have to do is define what it is that we want kids to learn and take this from the science. There are 5 specific things that we know kids need to leave high school with in order to be set up for success. And the first is skills. And we use these words all the time, and so I want to be really clear what I mean by skills. When I'm talking about skills like the ability to understand something enough that you can actually make an argumentative claim about it, that you can then back that claim with evidence, and that you can know that that evidence comes from a credible source. That's a set of skills that we expect our kids to know and that they need to know in the world. I'm talking about a skill where you know enough to hypothesize something, and that you're able to actually design a procedure or an experiment that will let you test that hypothesis. I'm talking about the skill that you can actually take the data from that experiment and you can analyze it and you can look at it and you can draw conclusions. Those are the type of skills that we need our students to have and leave with. Real skills that real people use to solve real problems every single day. You just heard in there, not only do you need those skills, but in order to use them, you need to know stuff. You need content. You can't just analyze nothing. You actually need to know something in order to do that. And so we need kids to know something. We can't just rely on Google. We need them to know something. And here's why we can't rely on Google. Because we need them to know that, well, yes, an archduke was assassinated, and that instigated World War I. It wasn't the actual cause of World War I, and you really need to understand what was going on there if you're going to make a claim about it. The next thing we need kids to know and do and have are good habits. And here's what I mean by habits, and I love this contrast. So if you look at 1950, the US Department of Employment, they listed what the top skills employers wanted in 1950 were. And the top 3 skills, just take a minute and to yourself try to guess what these are. The top 3 skills in 1950 were 1, the ability to work rapidly and for long periods of time. 2, memory for details and directions. And 3, arithmetic computation. So those were the top 3 skills in 1950. And you know what? Schools make a lot of sense if those are the skills that you need from kids. Because you should be spending your day at school building habits around following a schedule and copying down instructions and following them and turning in assignments and completing 25 math problems, even if you knew how to do that problem on the first one, or you still don't know it on 25 and everyone's doing the same thing. That makes sense then. It doesn't make sense in 2015 when Forbes lists as the top 3 skills that employers want: the ability to influence others, the ability to make decisions, and work on teams. The type of school habits, the type of life habits we need kids to develop now is the ability to work in groups. That's what they should be doing every day and practicing. The ability to manage complex relationships with really diverse people. The ability to make good decisions. And you know what? Those of us who are parents know kids aren't born with that ability. We actually have to teach it. And the only way to teach it is they have to practice it. They have to practice it over and over and over again. They have to practice it in a community where they're getting feedback and where they're getting reinforcement and where they're understanding consequences of not making good decisions. And so that's what Summit kids do every day, all day long, because that's how the school is designed. The 4th area is goal setting. And you got to hear from my friend Angela Duckworth, who has some amazing work on this, among many others. I know it's shocking to learn that successful people actually set goals and then achieve them. I know it's mind-boggling, but it's true. And the good news is this is, again, a skill set that we can teach. We can teach people how to become good goal setters and good goal achievers. And so schools need to set kids up to do this. The number 4 skill that employers are looking for today is the ability to plan and organize work. And so when kids set goals, and I'm not talking about like New Year's resolution type goals that you pull out of the air and like hope it might happen and the end of the year check in and realize it didn't. I'm talking about real goals and the skill set to make a plan and to switch strategies if it's not working and to reflect on what's happening and change course so that you actually get to your outcome. That's something that kids practice every single day at Summit. And then finally, they've got to have a credible path when they're leaving. When we set them into the world at 18, we can't send them off with a New Year's resolution type of path. We need to set them off with a credible path. They need to be able to connect their future and the vision they have for the future they want to what they've been doing every single day in their classrooms, in their schools, and in their lives. And they've got to have a credible path to get to that vision that is a reasonable goal that they can achieve around whether it be a credential or a certification or a career pathway that's going to get them there. I want to take us back to Edgar, and let's look at what happens when you expect all of these things of kids and what it starts to look like in school.
I want each and every person to tell me what they plan to accomplish today in our hour and 20 minutes that we have. You know the drill, you know how to do it. I want a name on the board and a goal next to your name for what you're gonna accomplish. With your partner, before you walk up, quickly talk through what do you think your specific goal will be for today? Go.
I'm not gonna focus too much on like separating this paragraph, because if I do that, then all my ideas are gonna get mixed up and I'm gonna get confused. So I'm just gonna try and like get my other ideas out and write a third page, and then if I'm done, go back and like fix the things I did. Because if I try to fix them before, I'll get confused for like what I'm gonna write like later on.
The second element that we need to focus on and that we focus on in Summit, and that's part of our success, are teachers. And this also shouldn't come as a surprise, but what we know to be true and what's important about teachers are two things. First is that in order for teachers to be positioned for success, number one, they must believe that all kids are capable of doing everything I just told you we need them to do. They actually have to believe that. And in my experience as a teacher, teachers want to believe this. This is why we go into education. Sometimes we get a little bit disillusioned, but the magic to getting out of that place is just to listen to some kids and see what is possible, and then you can believe. I want to look again at Edgar and show you what I'm talking about.
Self-directed learning is important for college, because in college, your teacher's not always gonna be over your shoulder. You're gonna have classes with like 500 people. A long-term goal of mine that I've had since I was in middle school is like applying to Stanford. I've always wanted to get higher education. I think through Summit, I'm able to do that. And so in the long run, when I'm older and I'm able to make like the money I want to make, I can give back to like the people that gave back to me, like my mom and my dad. Right now I'm interested in entrepreneurship and sustainable fashion. So I want to like focus more on calculus.
Edgar is incredibly capable. And so when teachers talk to Edgar, they believe what is possible. But they also need the skills in order to create the conditions and the environment and the experience that will enable him to achieve all of those things we need him, want him to achieve. And those things don't come easy or overnight. Those things take a lot of training, a lot of support, and a lot of development. So let me be really specific about what we do at Summit that is along these lines and what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that level of support. Our teachers have 50 days, that's 50 days a year of professional development. Every single year, every single teacher, to develop their craft, to create the environments they create, to become good at what they do, so that they can support kids like Edgar. 50 days, that's the investment that we make. Our teachers have coaching and support. I'm not talking about evaluation or judgment, but they have people who are in their classroom every single week, giving them feedback, people who know and understand what we're trying to do and helping them grow and develop. That's the type of support teachers need to have in order to do the job we're expecting them to do. The next thing, the third element of Summit is the environment. And I said we have to design schools that are actually great and work. And this is the one where the serious reformers sort of fall away from the kind of half-hearted reformers, because this is where you actually start getting into having to change things. And what I mean by that is like schools have to look different. They can't look the way they looked when I went to them and you went to them. And that kind of bothers people because they're very nostalgic for the way that school looked. And so you can talk about reform all day as long as it still looks the same as it did when I went there. And so this is the category where I know we're getting serious if people are willing to go here with me. And let me give you 2 examples of how schools have to look different to make this really concrete. The first one is, go back to high school for a moment and think about this. Should be very familiar with you. Pretty standard. you start a unit in a class. You're in a class and you're going to have a unit of study. Teacher introduces it. There's some series of activities, lectures, textbooks, reading, activity, whatever, discussion, whatnot. At some point, the teachers decide that it's time for you to know what you should have learned, and so there's a test or an assessment. It's given. Everyone takes it, same day, same time, and then you turn it in, and then the next day you start the next unit. And at some period in the future, you're going to get that test back, and it's going to tell you what you learned or didn't. And there'll be some percentage generally on there that tells you how much you learned. And I'm not sure if my friend Sal Khan this morning talked about what that equals, those percentages, but it's a really shaky foundation, because for every percentage you're missing, it means it's something you didn't learn, literally. And that all adds up. And there's no going back to that, because we have moved on at that point. This is what we call learning being variable and time being fixed. The time is the only certain thing in this equation. The learning is totally variable for different kids. And what we need to do, and what we do at Summit, is we flip that. Learning becomes fixed and time becomes variable. But if you start thinking through that for a moment, things start to get crazy. And those of us who are a little bit of control freaks start to think about, what do you mean? Like, kids are going to take tests at different times, and they're not going to all be working on the same thing, and they might finish this at this. But that's what we got to do. And that's what it looks like. We have to change schools. The second thing that we do, and there are many, 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 but the second one I'll share with you, is we have to change the way we're using time. I told you at the beginning, when I was a teacher, I couldn't get to know my kids because I was seeing 40 of them an hour. So we have changed time at Summit. Every single one of our kids has a one-to-one meeting with their mentor every single week. Every single week. Let's take a look at what that looks like for Edgar.
Having a strong connection with somebody at school who deeply knows you and knows your family and knows your goals is really important. We work towards accomplishing those goals through our daily actions and behaviors.
My mentor, Miss Ching, she means like everything.
For this project, it's due today by 3:20, right? So can you talk me through like what your priorities are as you go through the day? So like first block, or for the rest of this block, what are you going to work on? And then for block 2 and block 3.
I have to pass content assessments. And then I think like after that, I'm probably just gonna work on my essay.
There's been a lot of tough things that have happened to me throughout high school, and she's been there for me.
Like the thing is, I want to get all my work done today, because like tomorrow I'm going to a concert with Alexandra, and I want it to be like stress-free, the Macklemore concert in San Francisco. And so I don't want to go like thinking I could have done work yesterday and I didn't, but then like I just need to get all my work done today, so then I don't have stress tomorrow, and I don't have a lot of stress next week.
And then are you happy with your grades as they stand right now?
No, not really.
Okay, we have one more week of school, so what are things that you need to do next week to make sure that you're happy with your grades by the end of the week?
I'm just trying to pass like all my power focuses, so that like the last Friday I can pass additionals, and then I'm also gonna come in the summer. So like
Just that 1 week though, right?
yeah, just like for 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
The last element of Summit's success, and what we believe you need to be successful, are the right tools. And so when you're trying to do a hard job, you need the right tools. We need tools that allow teachers to personalize learning and teaching. And we need tools to make everything I just showed you possible. It's not possible without good tools. And we should banish the notion that a superhero teacher can actually do all of this without the redesign of a school and without the right tools, because it's simply not possible. And so what we need in terms of tools are, fortunately, now at our fingertips. We've got incredible technology that can help with this. Let's take a look at what Katie thinks of the technology she uses to support Edgar.
The PLP tool is essential to my life. It's really easy to sort data and identify areas of need. I can look at all the 10th graders and see, okay, right now they're really struggling in math content. There's just countless data that I could look at to help me really strategically spend my time. right now, this morning, I'm gonna go look through student work to prepare for my class periods today. I try to be very intentional about the way I spend my time. I had students a couple weeks ago fill out a survey about their grades as they stand right now. So they looked through their cognitive skills scores and they saw what their lowest cognitive skills scores were. And they chose to either do a procedure revision, meaning they need to revise the skill of designing processes and procedures, or they chose to do a final mini Socratic seminar where they're going to discuss the ethics of genetics. So I'm going to go into the PLP, and this is the project for the genetic ethics. I'm going to go to his specific class section. I have him in the morning today, so it's Tuesday, Thursday, block 2. And I'm just going to look for his name. His document is already linked in here. And I'm going to click to see so far what he's worked on. And so I'm going to go through here and give him feedback. At the bottom of his document is the rubric. He didn't self-assess his work yet, but here's the rubric of the skill I'm grading for this specific document. So I'm going to give him just some comments in his document right now, or sometimes if it's a small enough group of students, I just look at general trends. Like all of these students are missing annotation. I can literally go in and just put in a score for where it is at that moment. That way it's like very real-time feedback.
Let me tell you what all this looks like when you bring all of these pieces together from a parent's perspective. My son, Rhett, goes to Summit Denali, and this is his fourth year in the school. And so about a month ago, I was scheduled to speak at the Teach for All International Conference in Bulgaria. And not long before I was heading out, they called and they said, you know, this is a conference about personalized learning. It's about students at the center of it. Could you bring a student with you? And I said, to Bulgaria? Well, no, I can't bring someone else's child to Bulgaria, but I could bring mine if you want. And he goes to one of our schools. They said, great, that would be great. Bring him. Oh, and could he lead a discussion? There's going to be a bunch of kids there, and we'd like him to lead a discussion, a Socratic seminar about his experience. And I said, yeah, you know, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, our kids do Socratic seminars all the time. So yeah, he'll feel comfortable with that. It's great. We say yes. 3 weeks before we're heading to Bulgaria, they call me and they say, you know, it turns out Todd Rose can't come and speak on the science of individuality, so you all should feel grateful that he made time for you. He can't come and speak, but we really need those ideas there, and we thought it'd be great if a student could bring those ideas. Do you think that your son could do a 10-minute TED Talk on the end of average? And I had one of those parent moments, I don't know if you've ever had them, where in my mind, going very rapid fire, I am so busy in the next 3 weeks. I don't have time to write a 10-minute TED Talk on the end of average and give it to him and make him practice and da-da-da-da and all these things. And then, fortunately, my educator self took over and said, whew, this is not your choice. This is his choice. This is his decision. This is something he wants to do. He can be empowered. They're asking him, not you. So I calmed my mother's side down, and my educator voice spoke and said, I don't know. I'll ask him. I'll see what he wants to do. So that night I got home and I said, Rhett, you know, here's what they've asked you to do. And he got one of those smiles. You know, if you have kids, you know this smile, that smile where like they've really always wanted this, but they weren't going to tell you they wanted it. He got that little smile, and he just looked at me and he nodded. And I said, okay, but you know, here's all the, and I tried to dissuade him, and he was committed. And he looked at me and he said, Mom, we do this all the time. I go to Summit. I've got this. Okay. So it turns out I was really busy, and I wasn't paying a lot of attention. And so 2 days before we're supposed to go to Bulgaria, I'm here in DC at a meeting with Todd Rose, and I get a link to a Google Doc, and it's from my son. And he says, Mom, I thought you might want to look at my talk. And so I'm nervous. I open it up, and I start reading, and I start checking around, and I think, am I biased? Am I having one of those parent bias moments, or is this actually pretty good? I think it's pretty good. I think he kind of gets it. I think it's pretty good. So I'm scrolling through, and so I get up the courage to send the link to Todd, who's across the room, and I say, hey, you want to look at this? You know, my son's going to give your talk here in a couple days. And so I'm waiting, I keep refreshing to see if anything's happening. And sure enough, a few minutes later, at the end of the document, my son over these 3 weeks has gotten the book, gotten an audio copy, a hard copy. He's read the whole thing. He knew he needed to listen to it. He built an outline. He made a plan. He got teachers and kids to help him. He's done all of this stuff. At the end of the document, there's a little comment from one of his classmates, a peer, that says, "Rhett, I'm so proud of you. Will you make sure that they videotape this? This is such a great opportunity for you, and I can't wait to see the tape." And right below that comment is a comment from Todd Rose, the author of The End of Average, that says, "Wow, this is really great. I'm so glad you're giving this talk. How can I help you? Do you want to borrow my slides? And by the way, can you hurry up and graduate so I can hire you?" The schools I wanted to go to, the schools I wanted to teach in, and the school that I proudly send my son to. And that makes me wonder, what if every single parent in America could say that? What if every single parent in America could send their child to a school like the one Edgar gets to go to and like the one my son gets to go to? What would our country look like? And that's not just a rhetorical question. I actually want you to think about that for just a second. What would our country look like if every single one of our kids had a schooling experience like this? My answer to that question is, that's the country I want to live in. That's the country I want to raise my son in, and that's the country I want to leave for future generations. Thanks. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, and turns out I'm not the only one. So when you get some success and it's in newspapers and stuff, people start paying attention, and so they want to come and find out what you're doing. And I have always been one of those charter school leaders who believes that one of our primary purposes is to be innovative and to create new models and new designs and new ideas, and then to share those and spread those across public education. And so we are really open, and we let anyone and everyone come, and we welcome them, and we talk, and we write, and we share, and we're very humble about all the things that go wrong, and we try to be really open so people don't make the same mistakes. And so we had all these people coming to visit us. And what they all say is, "Oh my gosh, we want to do this stuff too. Oh my gosh, this is exactly what we want for our kids. This is what we want for our teachers. How can we get this? How can we get this platform? How can we use your curriculum? How can we get the training that you're providing?" And what we have tried for years to share, and I can't tell you how many PDF documents we have emailed and how many files we have tried to transfer. And the reality is that type of sharing is incredibly difficult if you don't have the right tools. I happen to live in Silicon Valley. We happen to have some of our schools right there in Silicon Valley. I know it's a really interesting place, and we're very fortunate to be there. And one of the people who started paying attention to what we were doing was Mark Zuckerberg. And so he was one of the people who came to visit. And so a couple of years ago, when he came to visit, we walked through the school, and he was like me. He's like, "Wow, this is a school I wish I could have gone to." And we dug in, and we learned about, everything that we're doing. He got really excited, and he finally said to me, "Diane, so what are your biggest opportunities and your biggest challenges?" And I said, "Well, the biggest opportunity is teachers all across the country want to do what we're doing, and they don't have what they need to do it. And the biggest challenge is we don't have the capacity to give it to them. To be honest with you, our platform is like duct taped together with a little bubble gum and some spit. That's what's holding it together right now. We can't share that with everyone." And he said, this is Mark Zuckerberg. He's like, "Oh, well, maybe I can help with that. Can I meet your engineering team?" And I said, "Well, yeah, you want to meet Sam?" And he said, "You call your engineering team Sam?" And I said, "No, we call our engineer Sam. There's only one of them." He's like, "Oh, we need to talk." So sure enough, it turns out that a few weeks later we formed a partnership. And I think this is one of the most powerful partnerships that exists. It's a partnership between Summit and Facebook, and it's a partnership between some of the world's best engineers and the most phenomenal educators. And together, we actually built a platform that we can share with anyone who wants it. And so what that partnership means is we're able to create a national community. And what that means is we're able to give our platform that we built away for free to any school who wants it. We're able to give them our complete open source curriculum, all of our assessments, and our training for free. What this looked like 2 years ago when we first started was 19 schools across the country who wanted to do this with us, sort of the early pioneers who said, yep, we'll jump in. 10 states, 19 schools, 2,500 kids. And so we worked together, and they took this and they implemented. What it looks like, oh, sorry, I forgot to show you Mark. There he is. What it looks like today, this year, in our second year, is 132 schools in 27 states and over 20,000 kids who are now in schools that are moving in the direction I just described to you. And they're working together with us to figure out how we can create a public education system that offers the opportunities that Edgar and my son have. There's a whole bunch of us in this community who are really committed. We're really committed to the vision that I just shared with you, and I hope the vision that you had for our country. And we're committed in a way that is not the New Year's resolution way, like we're hoping that maybe this is going to happen. We're committed to a goal that our country will be able to offer this type of education for every single child, and they'll be able to do it in my working lifetime. But here's the deal. I need your help. Policy plays a huge role in whether or not we can be successful. Policy determines not only what we expect of our students, but how we judge our teachers, the designs of our schools, and the access that people and kids will have to personalized tools and data. Some of the policies that are in place are promoting everything that we're doing, but there are some that are really blocking our way. And this is not something that we can do without all of you. I am very often called the crazy lady in the room. In fact, this has become so common that I think it even made it into the description of this talk. I think it's actually in the first line of the description of this talk. And that's fine, because it's true. I am crazy. In the very same way that it was true that when I was a third grader, I was dirty. The difference is today, I have a voice. I'm crazy because I believe that our country can provide a free public education system for every single child in our nation that sets them up to live the life they want to live, a good life. I believe that it's true because I see it every single day. And my hope is that you're just crazy enough that you're willing to join me in making it happen. It has been a great honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Governor Jeb Bush.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you very much. I think it's safe to say that the 1,000 people that attended this summit are as crazy as you are, in a good way. And we're inspired by you. And I can promise you, there's two things I'd like to say about this map. One, Upper Peninsula is part of Michigan, so that ought to be blue. Just saying. And secondly, there was a big peninsula down in the southeast part of the country that didn't have a summit partnership. I can promise you, by the next summit, there'll be more than one school that'll be taking care of that. I can promise you that. And wherever Hannah Scandera is in New Mexico, she probably make the same commitment. Wherever those blank pictures are on that, I think we have 49 states represented. So inspired by your words and by your incredible success, I think you're going to see that there'll be an explosion of interest in what you're doing. And I appreciate everything that you do. I hope you've had a good time at the summit. I hope you've learned a lot. I want to thank our extraordinary speakers, the sponsors, and all of you for all that you do. The summit is ending, but the Foundation for Excellence in Education is open for business. If you have any suggestions on how we can improve things at the summit, any advice for us to do our jobs better, we're all ears. If you're looking for help, you can always count on us to provide help, to give you encouragement, to give you support, to give you advice and counsel on how to transform our education system across the country. We're blessed to live in a country that is a bottom-up country when we get it right. The best ideas ought to emerge from the bottom through trial and error. And this summit plays a role in that to embolden you all to be as big and bold as possible. We love you very much. We appreciate you, and we'll see you in Nashville at the Omni Nashville Hotel next year. Take care. Thanks.